Welcome to the Trombone Retreat, podcast of the Third Coast Trombone Retreat. Today on the podcast, we are joined by principal bass trombonist of the Pittsburgh Symphony, Jeff Dee. My name is Sebastian Vera, and I'm joined as always by Nick Schwartz. Happy New Year, Nicholas.
Happy New Year, John Sebastian Vera.
Oh, you keep telling my secret first name, and now everyone's going to be able to find me.
Super secret.
It's really secret. It's not like I put my initials on something that I sell. Good New Year. Happy New Year.
Good New Year. I had a bunch of people over, ate a bunch of ham.
You just started with the ham. Okay. Traditional New Year's ham, as we do.
Yeah. Awesome. How about you? What did you do
beverage. It was low key. So New Year's Eve is my least favorite holiday. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you.
Weird.
I think it's dumb. But New Year's Day is my favorite day. I don't know. It's something about going out's always annoying, and it's always a letdown. Sure, it can be a lonely holiday at times, and it's just a lot of things. But the next day is just full of optimism, and it's beautiful. And so I always like New Year's Day. And I also traditionally always watch The Rock on New Year's Day, and I missed it. So I need to watch it today.
Hold on. Do you watch The Rock, the movie, or do you just watch pictures of Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Like video, like YouTube videos of him working out.
Eating like 6 pounds of cod.
Lastly, before we move on to talking to Jeff Dee, who has an amazing story, and I've been excited and anticipating talking to Jeff on the podcast for so long. He's a good friend. He's here in Pittsburgh with me, and so it's always been one of those things where he's so nearby, and it's like we always talk, and it's just like we actually got to record this at some point. So I'm glad we finally found a time to work it out, but we'll get to that soon. But before that, JSV tenor trombone mouthpieces are available exclusively at Houghton Horns, made in very limited batches and honored to say now being played on major stages all over the world. They're unmatched in response, purity, married with depth of sound and clarity of articulation. I'm proud to announce the new JSV Foundation series is being released very soon. It's the same special sound and feel with a classic polished finish, available in gold and silver. I believe everything is actually sold out right now, or there may be like one or two, but you can definitely get on hold. But either way, you can experience the difference for a 15-day no-risk trial at houghtonhorns.com. Also, we're hopefully announcing Trombone Retreat dates soon. I can't give you specifics, but we're circling in on June. But stay tuned for that. Join our mailing list, check the website, and obviously here we'll announce it.
Please enjoy this episode with Jeff Dee.
Jeffrey Dee.
Welcome, Jeff.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
So this is actually special because it's very rare that I get to hang out with two principal bass trombonists.
Yep. Small club.
It's very small.
Yeah.
Do you guys like look down upon just the regular bass trombonist? Like at the Masters, you have just the winner's room and the dressing room for normal people?
Let's just say both of us have our green jackets from Augusta.
That's right. And we were advised to not really talk about the benefits.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. God, I'm so curious now. That is an interesting thing, though, because it's something you don't see in every orchestra, and each orchestra has its own history of why that's a thing. I think I know more about why it's at the ballet. Like, Nick, I don't know if you've ever talked on the podcast about why that's a principal spot.
Well, there's multiple facets. Number one thing, ballet bass trombone parts tend to be very individualistic. I don't know why that is. It just is. So there's a lot of solos that are in the bass trombone and not in the principal, that sort of thing. But the thing that pushed it over that is my predecessor. There's a piece by, is it Glazunov? I think it's Glazunov, called Valse Fantasy, and it has just bass trombone on it. And in that, there's multiple parts where it says solo. And he went to management and he was like, "Look, I have solos. Solos are usually played by principals, so I should be principal." And they bought it, and so they, it is more common in ballet than it is. I would say, I haven't seen it as much in the symphonic world, or even the opera world for that matter.
Did you ever?
I guess it's a history thing.
That's really interesting. Like, Jeff, did you ever hear about like why historically it's a principal chair in PSO?
Yeah, there was an overlap while B.B. McCullough was still here. they brought in Murray Crew. And so there were 2 bass trombones on the roster, and Murray was doing all the work. And so he went in and he said, well, there's 2 of us in the section. I'm doing the work, so I should be principal. And they said, okay. So
why
that's
were
how
there
the
2?
name- I don't understand why there was the overlap. I think it might have been maybe he was on sabbatical with the intent to retire. Those details aren't clear to me. But there was a moment, in time when they were both on the roster. And so Murray leveraged that.
Man, and you guys benefited. That's pretty awesome.
We did. I remember early on when I started in Jacksonville and I was negotiating my contract, I reached out to everybody in the ICSOMP directory and just asked them what their experience was doing it and how many of them are considered principal. And so I got answers from maybe about half of everybody that I emailed, but one response I got from somebody said, no bass trombonist should be principal. You already have a principal in your section. So ask for that.
Wait, that was a bass trombone player saying that?
Yeah, bass trombone player.
Okay.
So I'll name nameless.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, so I pushed for it. Of course, I didn't get it, and I tend to agree that yes. But in your situation, Nick, and in ballet, I believe it certainly is a way more independent. I did a lot of ballet music in my first job, and those parts are very much principal worthy, I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder what the history is. It seems maybe it's just the style of writing in a lot of the ballet tends to be Russian, and Russian music tends to feature, in the brass world, it features a lot of the low-end stuff, a lot of individualistic tuba stuff, individualistic trombone, bass trombone stuff.
Maybe we've gotten history all wrong, and like these early composers meant for the bass trombone to be the leader of the section.
No, that's how I try to do it. It's like the Eagles' tush push. You lead from behind.
That is a connection.
Yeah. Thank you.
So Jeff, you've played all over the world. You've had an amazing career, and we're gonna touch on as much as we can. But you have so many unique stories, and I feel like, and I want you to take this in the best possible way. You're like my favorite underdog in some ways, but in a lot of ways you're not an underdog because you're so freaking talented and so good. But like, I have so much respect for you because you've worked so hard for everything you've achieved, and you're so disciplined, and you've faced adversity, and you've overcome things by just your work ethic and your dedication and your want to. And I think it could be so inspiring to so many young people and professionals all over to hear your story. But how about just like briefly talk about how you first got into music and chose trombone?
Well, that's probably the most interesting. Cause I did like music. If I heard something on the radio that got in, like what do they call it, earworm would get in, and I would be singing and whistling that a lot. But the thought of actually playing an instrument was never on my radar. They all looked so complicated to me, the whole other language of music. I didn't understand it, and that wasn't an interest. I was into marine biology. But when I got into 6th grade, in Texas, they had exploratory type programs, and you were required to do something in music. And you could take a band instrument, an orchestra instrument, you could join chorus, or just take a general music course. So I wanted to do the general music course, and my parents wanted me to do something, just learn the discipline of an instrument, and I'm glad they did. So I went to one of those instrument fairs, and I had the idea of trying to find something small, since I rode my bike to school. So I was looking at flutes or drumsticks or something like that.
Practical.
And so the band director at the time, he was taking a look at everybody very seriously and seeing their physical makeup and everything. And he said, I think you have a good trombone embouchure. And I didn't know what that meant. So he told me to do trombone. And one of my friends played trombone. He was a year ahead of me. And I thought, okay, this will be really cool because if I have a trombone, he has a trombone, we could play trombone together. But he quit as soon as I started, so that didn't pan out. So that's how I picked trombone. Is basically the band director picked it for me.
Yeah.
And I was coerced into learning an instrument. So it just started there.
Coerced. That's a good way to say it. And Yeah, and a lot of us have like similar stories. Like I talk about how you have to list 3 instruments. The third one was trombone, just because that's the first word I remembered. I didn't remember what a trombone was when I was 11. But it's crazy how these like little decisions will affect so much of our lives.
Absolutely.
And so, fast forwarding a little bit, once you decided you wanted to keep pursuing music, I think you have a really fascinating way on how you entered music school. If you mind elaborating, we actually went to the same undergrad, not at the same time.
We did.
And we'll get into that. But tell me about how you got into SMU.
Yeah. So actually, just in between, if it's helpful to anybody, of course, you start on tenor, and had an excellent teacher in middle school and junior high and high school, Bob Burnham, and he was very inspiring. When he saw that I liked to practice, he was just feeding me all sorts of stuff, just recordings of things, and if I asked for sheet music for something, he'd give that to me. Very inspiring. But then I got braces, so I was doing really well on tenor, but then I got braces, and that really ruined. I didn't really know what I was doing, right? But now it just all felt different, and so it just knocked me off. And that's how I got into bass trombonist, because eventually I found that rim fit around the braces a little better, and there was a youth orchestra in town that needed one. So anyway, but at this point, I bring that up because now any idea of like playing for a living or trying to pursue that was not even on my radar, because I didn't feel like I wasn't first chair. I could play trombone, but it wasn't terrific. I think I got into all region. My last year in Texas, I got into all area, and it was not one of the top chairs. So playing wasn't on my radar. I did want to do music education, and the people who inspired me most were band directors. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to inspire others into music. So I just didn't know that you apply for music schools in college before you graduate. It made just sense to me. And I guess other people just thought I knew that, and I just assumed other people would advise me, and so it just got lost in the mix. I never applied to any schools.
You know, that is, when you think about it, it is very unique to the music realm. It's like if you're going to a university, like where you did end up going, that has multiple different colleges within the university, you go there and then you find your major. That's how most people's college experiences. So it makes total sense that if you don't know, you don't know. You know?
Yeah, so I didn't know. And so it just happened one weekend. I was asking my friends what they were doing, and they said that they were going to audition at SMU. And I was like, oh, can I come? And they go, well, do you have an audition scheduled? I was like, no, but I'll come with you. So I did. I just ended up like following people to their auditions and then asking if I could sneak in an audition. So I didn't get accepted anywhere for this, except North Texas. North Texas offered me a $100 scholarship.
Oh my gosh.
just don't.
The places
just tell
you
me
could
not
have
to come.
Yeah. You
Right.
could have had like 10 meals at Waterbury.
I know. I was just
Exactly.
thinking, which actually, as a college kid, that's not a bad deal.
That's true.
Not so bad.
Wow.
So I was real ashamed to tell my folks that I botched this whole process, and I didn't tell anybody. And at the time, I was also composing some stuff. When I heard Mahler for the first time, I wanted to figure out how that worked, so I bought a score. And so I got into scores, and then it got me into thinking about writing my own music. So I wrote some of my own music, and my high school band director was great. He programmed some of this. I never asked him to, but he did. And so he programmed on the concerts, and a friend of mine who was already at SMU played a tape of my compositions to the composition faculty there. And so they called me and asked me to come to SMU for composition. So that's how I got into school. So I got into school for composition, but I immediately decided that wasn't really what I wanted to do. I didn't have any fundamentals of composition learned. I didn't know counterpoint, part writing, or anything. Anything I learned was just from observing in scores.
Had you auditioned for Southern Methodist University on trombone before this?
I did.
Okay. If you don't mind me, because I think this is just really fascinating. So you audition on trombone.
I did.
Do not get accepted.
No.
John Kitzman, our teacher we had.
Yeah.
And then you re-auditioned or reapplied with your composition background and did get accepted and
Right.
stop me if I'm wrong, and with a composition degree, you get lessons.
No, you do
You
not.
don't get lessons.
So no. And so when I decided I wanted to switch from composition to music ed, which is what I wanted to do anyway, so I just snuck through the back door into college, into the music ed program. So I didn't get accepted because of my trombone playing. I got accepted for composition. But then they said, yeah, you can switch to music ed, but now you have to get the approval of the studio teacher. So I went to meet John Kitzman for the first time, and I asked him if I could join his studio for that. And he said, did you audition? And I said, yes. And so he took me up to the room where the audition files were, and he looked it up, and he said, no. And I said, oh, no?
Okay.
He said, yeah, no. He said, because on the sheet, most sheets, most students may not have seen this, but they're judging, it says time, intonation, rhythm, all this stuff, potential, all this. There's all these things to fill out. But he just wrote, no, across the whole page. Oh my God. So he showed me. He's like, no.
Do you remember your audition?
It was so bad. It wasn't good. I don't remember the details of it, except just I wasn't a strong player, and I didn't have anything prepared. I asked him, I was like, what do you want to hear?
Oh,
you
boy.
know, when I got out there. And afterwards I said the stupidest thing. It's gonna haunt me forever. And I'm just gonna share it, because
Please.
we're all idiots when we're young. But at the end, they said, do you have any questions for us? And I go, well, do you like Mahler? Because I don't want to go to a school where they don't like Mahler.
You did not say that.
I said that.
The second part too, because I don't want.
Yes.
Oh boy!
I know.
If you want these skills, if you want to get with this, you need to prove that you know what you're talking about.
It's so bad. If anyone, I don't know. If I saw an audition like that today, it'd be all I talked about.
You better be down with Gustav.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Or no dice.
This
It
is
was
a
so
trombone
dumb.
player built by Mahler.
Yes. Anyway, it was that's how
I
that's the mindset I was in.
Would pay money
dumb.
to see Kitzman's face when you said that.
Oh, I know. He mentioned it when he went to work. He said, where do you get a load of this kid?
That's why he wrote "no" so big.
That's why he wrote "no" so big.
I think students too don't realize how much our teachers talk about our lessons with each other at work.
Right.
I think we think they don't think about us, but it's like if we do something really stupid, they're going to show up to work and be like, man, you wouldn't believe what my student did today.
Yeah.
I would never. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so how did you convince him to start teaching you?
That part I'm not so sure, but he ended up letting me come in because there were only half-hour lessons. For
To
music
start.
ed.
Okay.
Yeah. So he already had he had a very solid studio of seniors or juniors, seniors. And so they were already covered in the ensembles with that. But it was I was also doing marching band, and my lessons were always after marching band. So like if I'm trying to build an impression with Mr. Kitzman, I want to call him Mr. Kitzman still.
Yep.
But if I wanted to build an impression with it, I was doing a very poor job. So I would show up with face just completely wrecked.
And the
I was
high
a
step.
cigarette smoker.
The high step.
And I was a cigarette smoker.
Wow.
I did a little bit of coming out of the restaurants. I would have cigarettes, and he smelled it on me one day.
Oh boy.
And I was playing something for him in a lesson, and he just came up right behind me and just said into my ear. He said, "You have a habit that you need to quit today. Do you understand me?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And I did.
Dang.
I did. I quit. So, but I wanted to work for him. I saw his students were very strong, and so I wanted to work for him. But I was very far behind in terms of what he was demanding and what I was capable of at the time. So, at the end of the year, his top bass trombone student graduated and went on to Manhattan School, and the other freshman that was with me, who was a performance major, was kicked out for, I presume, academics and also just underperforming in his lessons. So I was the only bass trombonist returning this sophomore year. So we had a very heart-to-heart conversation, John Kitzman and I, and just basically saying this is where you lack, and I can't, in good conscience, give you any parts next year if you can't get these things in order. And so I worked really hard that summer, came back, and he said, okay, I can work with that. And And then that was the beginning of it. And I also have to say for all of you in college, the importance of your colleagues, your immediate colleagues in your education. I was so lucky that at the time, Lee Rogers, Chris Oliver in the Dallas Symphony, Lee Rogers in the Kennedy Center Opera, and Aaron McCullough, tubist now in the San Diego Symphony.
It's a good studio.
They were all there. And they were strong players. They were all-staters in Texas. They were performance. They had performance in sight as their goal. And I was still music ed in my mind. But I was the only bass trombonist, so if there was section stuff to be done, I was playing with them. So when I realized that their standard was real high, if I wanted to still have their respect and play with them, I had to work very hard to. So they were very much as strong an impact on my development as John Kitzman.
Absolutely. Like the atmosphere you're in is so important. And that's something we know as teachers now. When you have just a couple leaders in the studio, it just infects everything in a positive way. But for a lot of young people, if they heard what you were told, like, first of all, not getting in initially, and then being like, you're not sounding good enough, you have all these issues, like that would destroy a lot of people's confidence. Like, what kept you motivated, and like, how did you persevere through that to raise your level?
That's a great question. Part of it is stubborn. I don't like being told no, or that I can't do something, because I feel like then maybe I haven't been given a chance yet. Show me how. If I can't do it, show me, and let me show you that I can at least try. So it was a lot of that. I was obsessed. Look, you heard what I asked about Mahler. I was listening to Mahler all the time. I had his scores. Bruckner, I was listening to Bruckner. I was obsessed with orchestral music and just music itself, and I wanted to be a part of it somehow. And so I didn't want to be told no. I wanted to be a band director. So I wanted to satisfy the demands of this very demanding teacher with such the highest standards, because if he says something's good, then it's good. But at the same time, I never really thought, well, I'm doing this to perform for a living. I'm just doing this so that I can hang out with these great trombone players and, like I said, still have their respect and not drag them down. So that's really where my heart was. But that switched my junior year when I started doing student teaching. And I realized that's not where my heart was anymore, getting in front of kids that were not necessarily working at the same level of discipline that I was at the time. So it was hard for me to associate. I'd say, hey, just practice this, and this is how you practice it. And next week you come back and like, well, I didn't practice it. And that didn't resonate with me. I didn't understand. And I didn't have the skills or the patience, I think, to be a good band director.
It's a special skill set. It's a special skill set. It's not just like, oh, you're a good musician, so you're great at teaching any level. Like, it takes a certain level of empathy and understanding and patience to be able to communicate to that age group. I'm so in awe of people that excel at that. It's a special thing. And it takes some self-awareness to realize, you know what, maybe that's not the best area to aim my abilities.
Yeah, and it was disconcerting because I thought, this is what I really wanted to do, and this is what I was aiming for, but at the same time, I had this teacher that didn't care if I was music ed or performance. He said, if you're going to graduate and my name's going to be on your resume, you're going to be the best trombone player you can be. And so he held me to the same exact standards of performers. So when I was realizing this, I was like, well, I'm not good enough to do performance yet, but I realized I don't want to teach. This is not where my heart is anymore. So I went to him and I said, I'd like to do performance, and he was not convinced. And neither were my parents at the time. Together, they were both in agreement that I shouldn't do that. In fact, my parents even wanted me to add, like, if I did performance, to add a computer science minor as a backup. But then I didn't like that idea of a backup, to be honest with you. For me, because then you end up half-assing both. I wasn't going to be good. I wanted to go all in. So I told him, I said, I want to do this, and I did end up convincing him. He was I'm grateful that he heard me through. And I did say, just be as tough on me as you can, and I'll go where you want to go, where you want me to go. And at the time, that was Juilliard. So I had Juilliard in my sights at that moment, because Nick, because you got there right after I left, I think. That school, that's where everyone was winning jobs.
I've never heard of it. Is that like a trade school in?
Yeah, it's this little school in, what is it, New York City.
Nick never talks about it, so I'm just,
yeah.
It's a big mystery to me. But we just have to acknowledge the fact that you went from having no's written all over your audition as a music ed major at Southern Methodist University to getting into one of the most prestigious schools in the world, which probably accepts maybe one or two students a year. That had to be a huge shot of confidence.
That was, but I needed that. That's what I was aiming for. I was aiming, if I could get into that school, then I knew I was on the right path. That's really all it was, is I wanted to know that I was on the right path in a business that's not very clear. I didn't understand. There wasn't YouTube or anything for me to get on and listen to what everybody was doing in all the different orchestras. You had to really hunt through recordings and maybe a bootleg tape someone made for you to hear a bunch of different people and hear where the standard was going. So I was very insulated, I think, at SMU, not having a lot of people. There were no other bass trombone players in the studio for the rest of the time I was there, except my very last year, and another music ed bass trombonist came in. So I was the bass trombone player in that school. So I had no concept other than what I heard from Darren McHenry, which was, that was great. You got to go hear Darren on a weekly basis at the orchestra. So that was him and George Roberts were the two I listened to. And then John Engelkiss, San Francisco, Pierre Baudry in the Montreal Symphony. Those are the people I listened to ad nauseum to try to get an idea of what good orchestral sound was. But I had no idea what was happening on a student on par.
Do you think that can be a benefit in a way of like being on an island and like not being aware and not comparing yourself all the time and just being like, I'm just going to be as good as I can be and try to sound like these recordings?
Right. If you're not intrinsically motivated, that's a bad idea. But if you're intrinsically motivated, that could actually be the best thing for you. I think not constantly having someone that was a student that I was competing with, I guess, was good. I think for me. I think I might have maybe allowed that to inhibit my progress.
I think also, like you said, like there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't the internet, what was a shell of what it is today. And you really had to seek it out. And just that fact alone, that was like a barrier of entry. You had to want to seek out the knowledge, right? Whereas now, I mean, there's always going to be a reason. There's excuses, but there's less of an excuse now. Everything's at your fingertips. You can listen to so many things. But yeah, it was definitely much more difficult back in the day.
Back in the day. Listening parties, if we all found, or if one of us found a recording that was just really great, we'd be like, hey, check this out. And everyone would go in and we would just sit around in this tiny dorm room and just listen to recordings all the way through and talk about it. Or I remember
drink milk and...
Yeah, just chocolate milk. Yes, maybe some Kool-Aid. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that quartet I was talking about, Aaron, Lee, and Chris, and myself, we liked to play as a section. We were inspired by a story that John told us when he was at Michigan, University of Michigan, and they were auditioning for the orchestra. Everyone would go in and audition on their individual excerpts, but John formed a section, 3 trombones and tuba, and they went out and said, you either take all of us or none of us. And they sat down and they played all their stuff, and they basically monopolized the orchestra roster for the whole year because they were a strong section.
Is that like Mark Lawrence?
So we were kind of inspired by that. Pardon?
Was Mark Lawrence in that section, or was that like...
He was not. He was not. And so I think that may have been a motivating factor for him to transfer to Curtis.
Got it.
Because he wasn't getting much orchestra time.
So
thanks to John.
So when you auditioned at Juilliard, did you ask Don about his level of Mahler knowledge? No?
No, I was very quiet.
He had moved on to Bruckner.
I've moved on to Bruckner.
I've been listening to this new guy. So, man, God, there's so much I want to talk to you about. But, briefly, how was your New York experience coming from Texas?
That was eye-opening. All the orchestras that came through Carnegie. So I was at I was like in a playground. I would go stub in and hear the greatest orchestras in the world every week. And then when they weren't in town, I'd go hear New York Philharmonic or something else in town, go down to the clubs and hear the Mingus Big Band. So I was in hog heaven, just listening to great performers, trying to meet people when they came in town to play for them. I don't know if I had strong work ethic, I think, going into that school, but I learned that it wasn't strong enough. And that was my first real dose of competition.
Sure.
Because I didn't have that at SMU. So it did affect me. I would say I was constantly comparing myself to the other bass trombone players, and I could see everything they did way better than I could, and it was discouraging. So I think the great lesson I got out of that was to learn to go back into my own head, go back into that island again, and just say, look, they're on their mission, and I have to be on my own. And there are things they do that are better than I can. They're ahead of me. But that doesn't mean I can't catch up. But if I'm just sitting there feeling sorry for myself that I don't have it, that's not doing anything. So I decided to distance myself from that in my second year when I was there, and I just became a little bit more insular. And I think that's where I made my biggest progress, when I wasn't constantly comparing and feeling bad about what I could and couldn't do.
That's a huge realization to make, because I imagine a lot of young people, especially at a school like that, experience that, because you're often the biggest fish in your pond that you come from. When you get into a school like that, you have to be very good, and it's probably the first time you're encountering other people that are either just as talented as you or can do things that you can't do. And that's a pivotal point of like, can I handle that and learn from it and be motivated by it and not let it destroy my sense of value, or do I just crumble because I don't think I'm good enough? And it sounds like, especially at that age, it's like when you're a grad student, maybe you have a little more resilience to that. I imagine it can be tough as an 18-year-old. I don't know if you ever experienced that when you started at Juilliard, Nick.
Yes is the short answer. And it's like, you go from wherever you're coming from is probably number one in your area. And then you come in, and usually Juilliard carries 4 bass trombone players, 3 or 4. But either way, you're last place, pretty much guaranteed, especially coming in like I did as a freshman. And for me, I was there longer, so I was able to see myself go through the whole cycle, the cycle you went through, becoming more insular, more like I put my head down and just grind. And then I was able to, towards my 3rd and 4th year, turn it more into like friendly competition / inspiration from the people around me, because no one was really mean. Everyone was very nice. It was a great community. So it turned into something that was intimidating to something that was inspiring and motivational.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
And Jeff, did you live in one of those like tiny dorm rooms with like a theater major or something?
No, the first year, yes, I did. But I lived with a friend of mine from SMU, trumpet player,
nice.
Adam Miller. He came over. So we shared that. But then the second year, I moved into a rent-controlled apartment.
Oh, nice.
With somebody.
Control. Wow. Yeah. Fancy.
Yeah, it was real nice. I think I paid my rent was $267 a month.
Good Lord.
What? Did you live in like Connecticut or something?
No, it was 207 in Broadway.
Oh boy, yeah.
And it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, kitchen, living room, dining room.
Why'd you leave?
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Huh?
Well, actually, I know why you left. So was Shanghai next?
Shanghai was next.
Just a natural progression. Dallas, New York City, Shanghai.
He got shanghaied.
There were, the auditions that were available at the time. Kennedy Center, that was open, and that was when Steve Dunkel won it. I got only to the semis for that. The only 2 auditions that year were Kennedy Center and Shanghai Broadcasting Symphony, and so I got one of them, but not the other.
You've told me some stories. I'd love for you to share whatever, but it sounds like an incredibly unique work experience there.
Well, I wanted to, let me just say, first of all, I knew what the pay was. It was $19,000, which isn't a lot then. Certainly not a lot now, but it was still not a lot then. But for me, when again, stubborn is a quality to succeeding in this business, but I wanted to be employed, and I didn't want to go home and have my parents again, who are people who were not necessarily as excited about me majoring in trombone, say, see, you don't have a job or something. So I took it. I just wanted to, even if it meant flying across the world to take a job, I wanted to take a job. And the news coming out of Shanghai, the people that were playing there, they liked it. And the concept was to have an international orchestra of people from all different countries, but it was in its infancy, so there were only about 9 foreigners, and the rest were Shanghaiese. And the quality varied. There were some excellent players there, all the way down to people that had to be shown how to hit a triangle at the right time.
Was that you?
So...
Yeah, well, yeah. You never said you had a job on bass trombone there. You just said you had a job.
That's true.
There.
That's true. Okay, now you're
I
unraveling.
but you could see a job like that. You just show up like, oh, actually, we need you to cover auxiliary percussion too. Don't worry about it. It's in your contract.
Don't worry about it. Well, all in all, in short, I did sign 2 contracts when I got there. I signed one in Chinese and I signed one in English that I was told was a translation.
Oh boy,
but they were not the same.
Really?
And so that was that's where all the problems in that job. So anyone listening to this that wants to work overseas somewhere, there are great employers all over the place, but just make sure you do your homework and that you have an attorney look over the contracts you sign, especially if they are in a different language. So yeah, I was not.
What was some of the stuff that you weren't prepared for that was on that other contract?
Well, they leave of absence. The biggest thing on it basically said at the end of the Chinese contract, it said that any translations of this contract are considered invalid.
Wow, that is so...
Okay.
If it wasn't for the fact that you signed a translated contract right away, it's still bad. But oh my God, that is horrible.
Yeah. Anyway, you live and you learn, right? So what happened, though, is the orchestra was run by United Airlines, and they were investing heavily into this. And so when we got out there, we were treated like little celebrities. We had 30-foot banners of us hanging outside the hall. We went out to these elaborate dinners. We met politicians, celebrities, and all this stuff. So we were in Shanghai celebrities, and so we were going, it was great. It was really great. But 9/11 happened out there, and when I was out there, and the United Airlines was the flight that crashed. So I guess that affected their business model in a way that they pulled out completely from their involvement in the Shanghaiese orchestra, and it fell into the hands of the Shanghaiese Cultural Ministry. And their vision for the orchestra was not an international one at that point. They wanted it to be a very proud Shanghaiese orchestra, and there were people in the orchestra that were not Shanghaiese. So the rest of my time for about 9 months were rather difficult in the orchestra, and this is when they started flexing this other contract. And just so anytime we would say, oh, well, my contract says this, and they say, well, ours says this, and I was like, oh, what is that mean?
Well, so you a proud Shanghaiese orchestra, so that means excluding other people from China too?
I don't know. I'm not so sure of.
Okay,
but
just curious. More.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure about that.
And the travel, weren't there like crazy like travel schedules or like amount of hours you would have to have sometimes for rehearsals and
we had
runouts and
our contract. Yeah, well, our schedule, we only got 2 weeks at a time. So even though there was a printed season concert schedule, that changed all the time. So that I learned quickly that didn't mean anything. If you saw that you were doing Mahler 5 in February, there's a really good chance that you were not going to do Mahler 5 in February, because they would just change on a lark. Once we became
that would have pissed off
Shanghai,
young Jeff so much, thinking he's playing Mahler.
I had to China specifically to play Mahler.
Exactly. No, but we would, because we were now the property of the Shanghai Cultural Ministry, then we were then their tool. So if a dignitary wanted to go somewhere and wanted music, we would cancel our Mahler or what we were doing, and we would get on a bus and drive out there and play whatever music they wanted to hear. So I was learning very quickly that, I guess I should say that if I learned anything at all, over there. A is have someone look over your contracts. B, how to make the best of a bad situation. I just decided that I was going to get out at all costs, so I practiced a lot. And I was able to cut my teeth on repertoire in a way that, maybe I was green coming out of college. If I did this in my first job in America, maybe I wouldn't have gotten tenure. So I don't know. I made mistakes in the orchestra that maybe would have been egregious anywhere else. And so I feel like there was a positive working over there. But in the end, I learned, yes, to look over your contract and, just protect yourself. There's just too many stories of where that job was not ideal.
So that's why you married a lawyer.
I did.
Is it, and we can take this out, because I don't remember the details. I just remember there being some crazy story there with you. Was it something with jail or something? It was something.
Oh, well,
you don't have to share.
Yeah, that was where. Yeah, no, it was just a misunderstanding where, again, because I couldn't read Chinese, I didn't know that I had a temporary work visa in my passport, and it hadn't been upgraded to the proper work visa. It was only a 30-day work visa as opposed to the year-long one that I needed. I didn't know this, so when I went to go exchange some money at the bank and they saw that my temporary work visa had expired, they called the police on me and I was arrested and sent to jail. So until I could get a hold of my personnel manager to make that correct.
Sounds like a nice day.
Spent some time in the clink.
China. Hey, Mom, I'm in Chinese prison. Just...
I did not tell anybody.
Now everyone knows, Jeff.
I know. But I didn't tell my family that because they would worry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course not. I remember that being something crazy. Okay, let's keep moving here. So from that, and I love how you said it really motivated you to work hard and you had this laboratory to work in, but still being focused. And I imagine it's not easy to take American auditions when you're living in China. That was probably a whole thing too. But so was Jacksonville next?
Jacksonville was next. I had basically a 3-day window to leave Shanghai to go to Jacksonville, take the audition, and come back.
Wow.
That's what I was allowed.
Man, half of that's the flight.
It's basically the flight, landing, because the audition was all in one day.
Oh.
And then going back. So, yeah, in preparation for that, it was only audition that had happened in that year was Jacksonville, and I was keeping an eye. So I knew I had like one shot, and to take it, I worked real hard for that. I was constantly on the instrument, and I would have people wake me up in the middle of the night to run down 3 or 4 excerpts. They would call me up and like Brahms 1, Schumann 3, Rheingold, and William Tell. And then I would have my horn by the bed and I would play him down and I'd put him back on a stand and go back to bed just so I could get used in case my head was jet lagged. And so I had a successful audition there, flew back. And then when I had a chance to start the season, I went out there in September.
Nice.
And started in Jacksonville.
And you were there for how many years?
I was there for 5 years.
Oh,
2 of those were 1-year positions, and then 3 as their full time.
That's actually Nick's favorite American city.
Is that right?
It's very far from the truth. The exact opposite of the truth.
Are you a Jaguar at heart?
Not if it means Jacksonville Jaguar, no. But I am a Jaguar.
There you are.
Big cat.
Okay, Nick.
Big cat.
And if you don't mind sharing, one of my absolute favorite stories from you, of many favorite stories, is the Bolero story in Jacksonville. Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, it was a situation where it was in my first, I would say, semester of the job. It was with the first couple months. We were doing a show with Marvin Hamlish, and one of the tunes, I should just first say that the section, our principal was out that week. And so the second trombonist moved to first, and then we hired someone locally. I think he was a band director in town, but he could play trombone. He was pretty good. He played second, and I'm on bass. And this tune that Marvin Hamlish had just had a little quip of Bolero in the middle of it. It wasn't Bolero, but it had the trombone solo in it. And he asked the guy to stand up and play it.
Stand up.
And it didn't go great.
In rehearsal?
In the rehearsal. I felt bad. But in the concert, as I was getting to that moment, I heard like some talking to my right, and then I saw the music leave the first trombone stand and go on the second trombone stand. And this guy who's a sub, he's like, I'm not doing it. And he takes it and he puts it on my stand just as it was time to play.
I would have thrown that
And
off
so-
my stand so fast.
I know, but look, this is my first job. This is my
No!
first job, and I'm not going to say no. So I played it. It was in my Bolero was in my warm up every day. I had a section in my warm up where I went into my high register and I would do high register stuff, and then I would play the first part to Schumann 3, Rhenish, and then Bolero, and I would finish my higher studies doing that every day.
Finish,
So I had
finish with
Bolero.
Rhenish.
Yeah. So I always had that in my. I was able to play it. It wasn't terrific, but it wasn't something that was new.
You put some fat bass trombone slide vibrato on that high D flat.
That's right, just as you're supposed to.
I love that though, because like that's a perfect scenario. First of all, to freak out or just say no, and you looked at it as like a fun challenge, and maybe your stubbornness came in.
Obligation. It was more obligation.
Like, who else is
you
gonna do
don't-
it?
Well, you can't. You don't say no when you're in your 10-year process or you're new. You don't say no to things. So you become very agreeable and just try to be not a problem to anybody.
God.
So that was my.
God, if I was in that orchestra, that would have won me over on you. That would have sold me on you immediately. It's like, man,
Just look down and be like, good job, kid.
you passed the first test.
Yeah, exactly.
Tomorrow is also Sprock.
That's right.
That's awesome. And so you said 6 years?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years. 5 years. Yeah.
Man.
And then Buffalo. I went and did 1 year in Buffalo. They were in a transition period with Stephen Sanders. And I guess Ben Green was playing bass trombone out there for a year. And then he won the job in, what was the Zurich Opera.
Yeah, the Zurich Opera.
So he left for Zurich Opera, and now they needed someone to do a 1 year. And it just so happened that we were about to go through a labor dispute in Jacksonville. So it made good sense for me to take off for the year. And I did. I left and went up to Buffalo for a year. And then they ended up having an audition at the end of that year, and I took it.
And that's what you.
Yeah.
At the
Yeah,
audition?
That's right.
Yeah. Well,
No, because you were friends, and then you were friends through Kyle, and that's how
I took the audition, didn't advance, but I was staying with Kyle Covington, who was playing second trombone.
Embarrassing.
And I met Jeff in Kyle's
Never happened
apartment.
to me. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And it's been a love affair ever since.
It's
Absolutely.
true. Man, Jeff, you do pretty well in these auditions, it seems like.
Sometimes when I do well, and when I don't, it's not good. It's either you're cut within a couple excerpts, or I make it to the finals.
You
or
mean
something.
you haven't won every single audition you've taken?
Not at all.
Wow. And you can still have a successful career. That's wild. I thought if you
can.
don't win an audition, you have to have an existential crisis and consider quitting and maybe think you're not good enough. But this changes things.
Well, I was fortunate because, like I said, Shanghai, at least I was employed. Then I got into Jacksonville. Okay, so I was at least moving in. When I was in these places, I took auditions, and I did horribly in some of them, despite my best efforts.
What was your mindset when something didn't go well? How did you best learn from it?
Well, it's the immediate reaction when it doesn't go for me, my immediate reaction was not like, oh, that's bull crap, they should have liked this or not. I was very aware when things in the audition when things weren't right. And so if it didn't go well, if I advanced, sometimes I was like, really? You let that slide? Okay. But
Trombone pun.
most of the times I knew why I didn't advance or I didn't win, and there were times then I did let it get to me to think maybe I'm done, or maybe I've gone as far as I can go, all of this, but then that's nonsense. There's always more to do, and that's something I got from Ed Kleinhammer. He came and did a class at SMU when I was there. John Kitzman brought him in, and John Kitzman's standards were very high, and it was very I think it was transformative for me to hear it also from this guy, Ed Kleinhammer, who I deified through his recordings. And he would say the same things John Kitzman was saying, but he was saying that even 30 years into his career, he was staying afterwards for 2 hours, practicing things at half speed and listening back at half speed through his tape recorder to listen to all the fronts of his notes and everything. So I always tapped into that whenever I started to feel like maybe I was at the end or I have no business taking auditions anymore. I thought about Ed Kleinhammer and how up to the day he retired, he was still in his studio hacking through William Tell at half speed. And so I thought, okay, I'm not done yet. I just haven't worked hard enough yet, or I haven't worked smart enough yet. And so I would turn every time I didn't get something into a mirror, and I would show that mirror onto everything I'd been doing and say, where could I do more? Or where did I not do enough?
Would you say that you're, because I feel like you gotta have a centering belief and confidence or something that's like that it's like your superpower when you show up to an audition. Like, what am I banking on? What can I lean into that's a strength of mine? What would you say your superpower in those situations is? Is it your prep and your organization and attention to detail?
That's a great question. I think it is when I did my best at auditions, let me just say, when I did my best at an audition, and it took me a while to notice what this quality was that was successful over others, is when I had a very clear picture of what it is I was going to perform and why. I'm going to play Harianos this way. I'm going to start it this way. The middle section's going to be this way, and I'm going to finish it. And I'm going to do it this way because of A, what I've listened to, the recordings I've listened to, what I see in the score, and just other things I've learned as a musician along the way. And I'm going to make a very informed decision about how this needs to go, how it needs to sound. And then I'm just going to work hard in building it. But it's that ownership. It's not the question mark of, I hope Pittsburgh likes this, or I think Pittsburgh would play it this way, or someone would do it this way. It's more like I just erased all of that, and I would just say it has to be this way. And I think that's, I don't know if I call it a superpower, but that's where my confidence came from, was that I was presenting now something that I believe to be 100% right. And then now there's no question marks in what you play. Was it perfect? No. But I think the way I was delivering it had a lot of confidence and was well informed. And that's when I did well. And I could go to an audition feeling proud of what I've built and what I've created. And please listen to this. It's pretty good.
You're giving your mind and body clear intention when you have such a idea of what you want it to sound like, versus like you pick up your horn and you're like, I hope this goes well, or you're like, we'll see what happens once I start.
Well, also, sorry, Sebastian.
No, go.
Yeah.
When you have that thoughtful of a preparation, when we'll keep using Harianos is on the stand, your mind knows what to do. Your body knows what to do. Yes. It's like, okay, this is Harianos, boom, load that file up and let's play.
Yeah. And it's not about the high B. It's not about that anymore. It's about the story that you want to tell. And it's knowing that you have the goods to back it up. If I miss the high B, who cares? What was the story I was telling you up until that point? And was it convincing enough for you to not care about that high B? But if my whole thing is, okay, they're asking Harianos for the high B, then, and that's all I go for, if I miss the high B in my mind, none of it was good, right? But I don't know. I decided not to think that way anymore, and it wasn't about winning an audition. It wasn't about playing my best. It was about serving the music, as corny as that sounds. It was like, this is Mahler, this is Beethoven, and this is what they're supposed to sound like, pulled out of context. And the other game was try to get people to, I wanted the committee on the other side to hear the orchestra. I wanted them to, we tell our students to do this, but I wanted them to hear and feel like they are now sitting in Beethoven's Ninth. And then as soon as that's over, now they're in the middle of Respighi's Fountains. and I want them to feel all that. And so there's that extra level of trying to build something that you can be proud of. And then that's, I think, what happens when I'm at my best, because I've done everything I can. I've gotten the idea of what I want to present, and I've run it through the metronome over and over again to make sure that it's going to sit there in time. And then I've run it through a drone and against a tuner to make sure every note's going to be there, and embedding it up here. And when all that's sticking, how can you not be confident? It's because you have something really fun to play.
I feel like I want to go practice now, Nick. That's awesome.
So, so you were in Buffalo for how long?
9 years.
9 years, okay.
35 albums.
And then are we ready to move on to the Pittsburgh saga?
Saga. It's a saga.
The Pittsburgh era?
Yeah, we don't necessarily have to just walk through every chronological step, but
Sure.
Yeah, and so you played under Joe and Folletta for many years.
Yeah.
I read 35 albums you recorded. That's the first time I got to play with you. We played Shostakovich 5, which is still one of my favorite concert experiences I've ever.
That was a fantastic concert.
So good. It was
This
really
up in
good.
Buffalo?
Yeah. We had this conductor who I think was nicknamed the Yeti or something. I forget his name.
Super tall.
Nesterowitz or something?
Very hairy. I forgot his name. It's driving me nuts now. I can picture him in my mind. But the experience, like he had a real emotional attachment to Shostakovich 5 and had a great way of imposing that on this orchestra. And they were all convinced. It was an exciting Shostakovich
That was
5.
really inspiring. Yeah, and now you've gotten to play that a ton of times. And
A
you
ton
guys
of times.
recorded it. Didn't you just do it's like one of your big touring pieces with PSO, right?
It is. That was the first piece I played with Pittsburgh. I was called to do that as a sub. When I was still in Buffalo, they called me on a Tuesday night at around 11 p.m. It was Pete called, and he's like, "Can you be here tomorrow?"
That sounds like a Pete call.
And I said, "No, I can't be here tomorrow." Joanne Folletta was doing her every 2 years. She does an international guitar competition that she built and is very proud of, and I wanted to play that. Joanne. All I'm going to say is that Joanne was just a tremendous positive impact on my career, in making me feel valid as a musician. And the way she conducted an orchestra and the way she empowered individuals to just play their personality, and then somehow harnessing that into a unified sound, that was one of her gifts. And I was so grateful to work under her, because I feel like that's where I was also able to grow. I was able to try things, and she was open. But yeah, so I couldn't miss that competition. So I asked if I could come Thursday, and he said yeah. So I drove out right when the concert was over Wednesday night. I drove down to Pittsburgh. We recorded Shostakovich 5 that weekend, and then
And that's the first time you had ever played with them?
Yeah,
Oh,
it was the
man.
first time I ever played with them.
They must have loved you. Hearing you
it
play
was fun.
Shostakovich, man. That's the first time I was like, okay. Because something I tell everyone about your playing, and I've said it to you a million times. Just if we're just talking about trombone playing, it's like what I love so much is the core you have in your sound. You have such an amazing core to your sound that when you want to project to the back of the hall, you have zero issue. And it's so easy to play with. It's so in tune. You have so much control over what you're doing. It's powerful and expressive with beautiful sound, like all the things. How did you go about developing that kind of thing, that your sound? And is core something you actively think about?
Well, first of all, that's very kind of you.
I would only say that on a podcast, so it's not.
Core is something that John Kitzman talked about a lot. And when I wanted to get a reference for what he was talking about, he directed me to George Roberts. And so a lot of it was listening to as much George Roberts as I could, and then trying to... I didn't understand. Now I picture it as a sound is in two parts, as I always tell my students, that you have that core middle part, and then you get that resulting harmonics or shimmer, corona, whatever it is you want to call it, that brings life to your sound. I wasn't thinking of that at the time, but that's what George has so much of. It's when you listen to the middle part of his sound, it's just like there's a human voice in there, and then it has this beautiful outer sense to it that anything it can not only project through what's going on, but it connects so well to the other sounds around it. And so I wasn't conscious of it, but I was listening to it so much that I was trying to impersonate it, if that makes sense. And it wasn't until I started playing in Pittsburgh that it really clicked how trombone players, like when I heard New York and Chicago growing up, how did they make these massive sounds? The orchestras I was in, we couldn't really, we would put out volume, but you couldn't put out that kind of volume without just being way out of context. But in Pittsburgh, you could. And I didn't have that sort of built-in capability, I think, to really sustain that kind of volume and ease of sound that my colleagues around me were doing. But I watched them, and I watched everyone around me and trying to figure out, okay, how do they do this and make it seem so effortless? And the answer was right there, is by putting in less effort. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean caring or anything like that, but everyone around me is very still when they play, and Craig and all these people. And so I started going home back to Buffalo and practicing, being just very still and easy in all this. And next thing I knew, I was getting a lot more product for less effort. And so I just kept working with that for a while.
Yeah, because the instinct when you first like sit in, and it like with Pittsburgh, for example, it's one of those experiences that you really can't describe the amount of sound that's being created unless you just are sitting in it and doing it. And it's a different kind of loud. Every orchestra has its own version of loud. But yeah, like the instinct is to like try to hang, and then you start forcing and trying to push, and then maybe you can get there sometimes, but then your playing really suffers or your accuracy goes. It's just like, yep. And I know you had to tinker with equipment for a little bit right when you first started. Just get that right. Like what kind of color were you looking for?
Well, I was looking to just make my sound, but bigger. And the problem is that I would push the sound past what it was. And so Murray had a lot of success. My predecessor, Murray Crew, had a lot of success on a rotor-based trombone. So I did try that for a while. And that actually I was inspired after trying your Wrath, Nick, after one of those retreats. I tried your Wrath, and I was like, rotor trombones aren't supposed to sound this good or feel this good. So I started looking into it, and I did get one. I got an M&W. It was a beautiful trombone, and I loved the way it played, but I overplayed it. I just couldn't. The near field, to get the kind of sound I wanted near field, meant that the sound out in the hall was ugly. I was making bad. I didn't like this. It was devoid of that outer part. It was all just this kind of hateful core coming at you, and that's not who I wanted to be. So I went back to Thayer's, and I'm just on a pretty standard Shires right now. But I feel like that, plus the concept of really just trying to get a focused core, but something just very relaxed for the outer part of the sound to project to the corners of the hall. That's when I unlocked the code, I guess, that allows my colleagues around me to play with just such effortless. I shouldn't say effortless. I know they work so hard, but not putting the effort into the playing.
And I imagine the cool thing about the Pittsburgh Symphony is like by the time you've gotten to your car after the concert, like the concert has been uploaded on a Dropbox and you can be listening on the way home. So I'm sure that was invaluable to hearing how you project in the hall.
Absolutely. I listen to as much as I can. Especially if I feel something went really well, I want to listen to it, not just to get all excited about how great it was, but I want to say, if I felt like something went well, I want to know that it really did. I want to, okay, good. Then that's what that sounds like if I do that. But if it felt like really great and I was super excited and I listened to a recording and it's like either you can't hear me or you just hear that ugly middle part of the sound just blaring at you, then I didn't do my job. So I got to figure it out.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I have a lot of fun playing with you there, man.
Likewise. I always love when you come play with us.
Thanks, man. I've told you this, and I tell other people, and I feel like a lot of people have this experience of where when you're just around good players, it'll bring the best out of you, and sometimes it shows you even more of what you're capable of, and it's like addicting. You want to play with good people all the time, and especially because we had similar education. We studied with the same undergrad teacher that I feel like we kind of lock in and align on ways like that. So it's always really fun.
Not a slide bumper in sight.
Well, don't tell. John Kitzman might be listening to this. I think both Jeff and I have been violating that. See, Jeff doesn't even want to say it. He's still scared. He doesn't even want to admit it. Doesn't want to admit it.
I have a slide bumper on mine.
My name is Jeff Dee.
I think slide bumper.
I play with a slide
bumper technology has really improved.
They have a new rubber source.
That's right.
You need to source it ethically. Get ethically sourced rubber. It's important.
So, for anyone listening that doesn't know this, John Kitzman could actually listen to somebody behind a door, and you could play something 10 times and either have your bumper on or off. It was up to you, but he could hear it on the other side of the door. He could know when you had it on or off. So you really believe that was and it's true. That's where your sound first hits a corner or a bend, and if it's dampening there, I get it. But on my horn now, it doesn't seem to affect it. But so what he would do is he would take people's bumper off, and the picture frames in his studio had bumpers all stacked on top of him from all the people that came through and lost their bumper. And so I did come into a rep class one time when Jack in the Box was doing those little heads that go on top of the antenna. I took one of those and I put that at the bottom of my slide and came in with that as my little slide bumper. And it took a few minutes, and when he noticed it, he just didn't say anything. He just looked at it and goes, and cleared his throat. So I took it off.
I just have a couple things I want to touch on before we get to the rapid fire, if that's cool with you guys.
Sure.
Can I ask you about your vision? Is that cool?
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know, but you're actually blind in one eye, and you have an amazing glass eye that's like, you were telling me about the artwork and how that's made and how you like sit for someone, and there's professional artists that spend a lot of time, and yours looks incredible. Like majority of people would have no idea unless you told them. But as a trombonist in a section, it's your right eye that is the glass eye. So sitting in a section, the second trombonist is to your right, the principal's to the right. The principal may need to be cueing. Like, how have you adapted throughout your career to be able to work within a section? And just in general, what challenges have you had from it?
The obvious is not being able to see slide cues readily, especially two people over from you. If my second were to slide cue me, I could see that out of my periphery here. But so I learned to look at the curvature of the bell. You can use that as like a side view mirror. So what it taught me, though, is like I can't constantly be trying to look. As soon as I start looking this way at the slide, I'm not looking at the conductor or my music. So I can only look at few things. So it opened my ears, mostly. I just had to learn to listen better. And I think that has had a very positive impact on my career, to be more of an aural performer than a visual. And so just picking up on the nuances of what people are doing around me, I have to be better attuned to that. But otherwise, yeah, for something that, if we're playing something in the orchestra and no matter what the conductor does, we're just a little askew on our entrance or something, then I will, without talking about it, I'll just start to look over to see if the principal is trying to do something there. And if they are, boom, we're all set. And so at that moment, I can memorize my part. I don't need to look at the conductor, because right now what I need to know is where Pete wants me to come in, or whoever's playing first. So I'll lean over just a little bit. And so it's learning when I can take my eye off the conductor and the music, and then combined with just listening better.
I imagine you get, especially with colleagues that you're used to playing with, I imagine you get pretty attuned to listening to breath sounds too.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, just whatever I can get for pulse, time, pitch, without looking at anybody or relying too much on the visual. Yeah, but like I said, if there's something in the ensemble, you can anticipate it now. We've been, all three of us have been playing enough that we can anticipate spots coming up that are going to require maybe something, a little more help from a colleague rather than from the conductor. So,
and just like in general, like living, like with seeing out of one eye, sometimes depth perception, is that a challenge?
That is a challenge. I have Taylor Jones has been fixing a lot of dents in my slide. Yeah, so I do bang the slide. I would bang the slide into the stand. Quite a bit, but enough that it needs servicing a couple times a year.
I do that too, but I don't have any excuses.
Yeah, you have no excuses, Nick. You're just a klutz. And it's incredible because Jeff's like an incredible billiards player, and I would think that would be challenging, but
I was.
I'm sure you would destroy all of us. But I love the concept of turning a perceived weakness into a strength. It's like maybe your ear is developed even more. One time I talked to you, I have no idea if there's any science behind it, but since you see out of your left eye, I'm curious if that stimulates your right creative side of your brain more than the average person. Like
I haven't thought of that.
That could be interesting.
Very true.
That's why you're such a good artist.
Very true.
Seeing you, Jeff, I've seen you freak people out with your fake eye. rattling a knife, like a butter knife between your glasses.
Haven't you like dropped it in a glass of water in front of people at dinner and stuff?
Think of any immature thing you can do with it, and I've done it.
Amazing.
I should get you a sweet eye patch for Christmas. That'd be cool.
Well, including a notoriously difficult conductor from Juilliard. I turned one eye to this side, and then I looked hard left, and I would go up to him after every rehearsal to ask him a question, but I would have both eyes like going hard this way, and I would just stare at him and ask him questions until he was very uncomfortable, and then he would walk away. And so anytime I went up to him, he would walk away, and
Was this a German conductor, perchance?
It was.
I know who you're talking about.
Yes.
3 names.
That's how I got him to leave me alone.
It's so funny.
That's brilliant.
Also, something that you've developed the last few years is you've become a full-on audiophile. Can I use that word?
Oh, I don't. Maybe. Yes, I do. I do enjoy.
I dabble.
Good sound. Yes.
So, Jeff, if you ever get the opportunity to hang out with Jeff, in his basement, he's created this incredible listening space. You've gotten really into collecting records, but also with our good friend Sam Buccigrassi, really nerding out about sound and speakers and vinyl and pressings and just getting this optimal sound, and then finding all these amazing pressings and historical recordings. And so it's like, it's a literal spa. You go down and you hear these amazing things, and every time I do, like, my blood pressure lowers and you just feel good. How did you start getting into that?
Well, that was a byproduct of the pandemic. It wasn't something, I always listened to recordings. I liked to do that, but the quality of what I was listening on was never anything special. But in the pandemic, I don't know, about 6-7 months had gone by, and I hadn't heard anything live. And I didn't realize how much I missed it until I went over to Sam Buccigrassi's house. He has a fantastic sound system. And it's just only gotten better and better. But it was the most impressive thing I had heard, and certainly in 7 months. And it felt real. It felt like Ella Fitzgerald was in the room with us. It felt like that bass player was over there. And I started crying because it's like I realized how much I missed that. So I was like, I want this, but I don't want to spend as much as you did. So what do I do?
Slippery
He
slope.
said headphones. Right. It is. And so I got into headphones first. And then from there, this is where the tinkering thing comes in. All of a sudden now, it's like I want to know if you change this amplifier or you do this, does the sound get much better? And then I just kept chasing better and better and better sound like I do on the trombone. And that kind of led into us getting into building our own stuff. You can get a lot more bang for your buck when you build it yourself. So we started doing that, both Sam and I, and then
building like headphone amps.
Headphone amplifiers, and then that kind of blew up into, then I got some big speakers for my own, and then just been tinkering with that. But once I got a record player, it dawned on me that now I can start to really, so when John Kitzman, an undergrad, said, go find George Roberts recordings, I was like, where? And he said, well, anything with Nelson Riddle. So I just started looking Nelson Riddle. There was not like a real focused search, and it was hard to find stuff because he was a studio musician. He had a couple solo albums that someone gave me a cassette tape of. But now I have access to finding his discography, and a lot of this stuff never made it It never got digitized into CD and all this. So there's a bunch more George Roberts out there, and that obsession just took over. So now I had a chance to go through and find all these great records, soundtracks, whatever, and listen to him in a whole new way and try to hear. The whole goal was to try to hear him as clear and accurate as possible so I could really hear his sound. And now I have the means to do that.
It's a special thing, especially with the majority of people listening to very condensed things through Spotify or through our phones. Hearing the breadth of sound and literally being able to close your eyes and sense the space you're listening in, and oh, the trombonist is over there, and I'm hearing this from over there, and you're hearing how it resonates in the hall, and it's like the best way I could describe it. Yeah, like you were saying, it's like a little time capsule. It's like a time machine where I remember Sam, our friend, was playing an old recording of Louis Armstrong, and I was like, this is what he actually sounded like. This is what I get the magic now.
Yeah.
And that's so cool. I can totally see how it can be addicting. Nick, when you visited, did we go down and...
I went over for dinner one day, and you were in the build your own headphone amplifier stage, seemingly towards the beginning of it. And I remember you asked me, because I have a record collection. I have a record player. I have a Lynn Sondek. Yeah. So you asked me about it, Jeff, and I said, stick with headphones.
Yes.
Because the ceiling, you can spend thousands of dollars on a pair of headphones. But thousands of dollars is like just scratching the surface when you start getting into actual speakers. Then you have to have a receiver. Then you have to have, if you have anything digital, like if you're playing CDs, you have to have a DAC.
Yep.
And every little component adds up. I guess you need a DAC for when you're listening to digital anyway, if you really want to up your quality with headphones even. But the ceiling of everything is just much lower than it is for speakers. And I'm glad to hear you didn't listen to me.
It's a great alternative to having kids,
It was ridiculous. I thought I was doing smart by buying used off Craigslist, but it just doesn't stop, because then once you have this, you start thinking, oh, but what if I did this? What if I did this?
I mean,
and anytime you start to hear an improvement, you're like, oh, well then what if I did this?
I think people who have never been in the audio world, they don't see it the same way, because I'm not into it in the same way you are, but I'm in it enough to know every single little thing you see, there is something you can tinker with that could add 0.5% of quality. And it could be like the stand that the speaker's on. It could be the spikes that come out of the bottom of the stand. So that it's the way that it grounds itself. The cables, don't even start with cables. That's a whole another thing. The receiver. And there's a guy in Japan I read about who really into vinyl, and he got a dedicated electricity line.
I saw that.
House,
I think I sent that video to Jeff.
Dedicated source of electricity. That's like next level crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that
it's expensive.
Perfectly fits.
People dedicate their whole lives to it. Have you had a chance to go shopping in Shibuya in Tokyo? There?
No, but I've seen like on the vinyl subreddit.
Yeah.
People will post pictures of their shopping excursions in Japan.
There will be a store that sells only vinyl, of course, but it will be 1970 to 1975 rock vinyl from England. Like very, very niche. And that's what that whole store does. And
Japanese pressings of records are splendid. Those are unbelievably well pressed. Quality control on Japanese pressings are excellent.
And yeah, I've spent multiple days shopping in Shibuya, just going record shopping. It's pretty awesome.
Man. No, I haven't spent any time there, and I would love to.
Yeah, it's definitely a kid in a candy store.
What are you guys doing tomorrow?
Let's go to Tokyo.
I'm on break. I think this would be a perfect time to ask Jeffrey some rapid fire questions.
Absolutely.
Jeffrey, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Slow down and be more methodical.
I think you took your advice eventually. Sounds like you did.
Eventually. Mostly because I was just in the practice room like 6-7 hours a day, just playing, and I wasn't establishing. I wasn't building, I should say. You know what I mean? I was just constantly.
I think we all go through that phase.
I should say forming. Yeah, you know what I mean. I wasn't forming patterns. I wasn't forming. That's the word. Habits. I was just playing. It was all just on the face. So if I had just slowed down and just said, okay, practice a lot, but just do this much now, and then move on to this and move on to this. If I had done that, yeah, I think I could have been more successful in some of the auditions I failed in.
As a professor, and you teach at Carnegie Mellon University, we've also loved having you at the Cleveland Institute of Music this year, hopefully going forward. As a professor, what is one non-trombone piece of advice you find yourself giving to your students most often?
Well, it's tied into that, but balance. Just balance yourselves. I do expect a strong work ethic from my students, and they should just expect that from themselves as well. And if that's lacking, we work on that. But balance. And just making sure that, because some of them do work very hard and almost too hard. And in the same way I was just talking before, there was no, I needed to slow down and just be more methodical with what I did. And so, I don't know, just anything in life, balance is key.
I'm excited to ask you this one, especially with your extensive knowledge of so many historical orchestral recordings. If you could join any brass section from history for a concert, which one would it be? And bonus if you choose the rep.
Oh, dear.
Like a decade.
There is... Oh, man. Oh, if I could pick... I want to pick several.
That's fine.
I want to pick several. I would love to have been in the San Francisco Bloomstedt era when they were doing the Hindemith recordings. I would have loved to be. I would have been so proud to be in that brass section and play like John Engelkiss. I would be so proud to have been part of the Montreal low brass section when they recorded their Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet.
So
and
good.
Schulte, Chicago, when they did their Mahler 6. That to me is some of the finest, most exciting brass playing I've heard. And just from an orchestra, everything in it is perfect, in my opinion. And then 16-year-old me, 15-year-old me would be real upset if I didn't mention being in the New York Philharmonic section when they did that Mahler 3 recording that I listened to 1,000 times. So I'm sorry I can't tell you one.
Those are
but
great.
I'd like to do that. And then if it was an orchestra, I would love to have been in the LA scene in the 50s and 60s and 70s playing with those players in all the session things. That would be, of all things, that would be, and just pick up whatever gigs George Roberts didn't do. That would have been the highlight of my life if I could do that.
That's awesome.
That's a good answer.
And like a couple decades from now, someone's going to be like, man, I wish I could have been playing in the Pittsburgh Symphony during all these recordings.
I am so fortunate. My colleagues are awesome. Yeah. It's a fun brass section.
That being said, that transitions to my next question. What is the most important unwritten rule of being a good section mate in a professional trombone section?
Oh, wow. If I could, just having your own integrity, because I think then you show up and being respectful. I think integrity, being respectful, because then you show up prepared to the level of what everyone else is around you. Therefore, not causing them to have I don't want to be in anyone's way, is what I'm trying to say. When I come to work, I want to be someone that assists in the product we're making and not making it difficult for anybody else. And then that also translates into the personal side of things, is that if you're also treating people around you with respect, I think it just makes for a smoother working environment. Everyone does deserve respect. Everyone earned their positions there, and are excellent musicians, and I respect them all for it, and they should know that. And if I'm not having a great day personally, I shouldn't allow that to affect how I show my respect for other people, and it shouldn't affect the integrity in which I come to work and how I'm prepared.
Don't make your bad day another person's bad day, right?
That's a great one, yeah.
So one of my new favorite things nowadays is at the very end of preparing for an interview, I ask AI to come up with a rapid fire question for my guest. And I say like, I'm interviewing Jeff Dee, bass trombonist, and it understands the tone of these questions, and it like scours the internet, and it came up with a few, but I'm going to read you my favorite one if I can get it out. I hope this is correct. You were once a busboy at Steak and Ale. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
What's the biggest similarity between clearing tables and playing a Mahler symphony?
First of all, I know why it did that. Because, oh, wait. What is the LinkedIn?
Mm-hmm.
Is that...
I
wanted to see someone's profile, and it wouldn't let me unless I signed up. So I just signed up Jeff Dee, busboy at Steak and Ale. And I did this like 6 or 7 years ago, and that's why I found
Does
that.
Steak and Ale even exist anymore?
No,
Is
it
that
doesn't.
where they cut off the
closed.
tie, or is that a different place?
No, that's Trail Dust.
No,
Trail
that was
Dust. Thank
Trail
you.
Dust.
Listeners,
Okay.
real quick, is I grew up for a short time in the town that Jeff is from, and we would have went to the same high school, but at different times.
Oh, wow.
That's right. Yeah, that's because you grew up in Plano.
In Plano, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
What's
Or
a similarity between clearing tables and playing a Mahler symphony?
Oh, weird.
Oh.
It's art.
I guess you have to have focus.
It's true.
Because
Gotta be humble.
sometimes you come running in with your bus tray and you knock into a server, or you hit the back of someone's chair, or when you're cleaning, you spill some water that gets on somebody. So you had to be quick and focused when you did it. There's really no similarity. I'm just
Attention to detail.
attention to detail, I guess.
Yeah, tuck your shirt in.
if that's what you care about.
I want to ask the other two AI questions now, just so you can hear
Yeah,
them.
do.
You don't have to answer them. You're a big fan of The Big Lebowski. If the dude played the bass trombone, what would his practice routine look like?
Probably look a lot like Phil Teal's was.
Just like the same
But,
note over and over.
Just the same
Just
note
this
over and
one's-
over again.
Oh, yeah.
Lazy air. He would have lazy air.
He'd probably have a sweet sound. He'd be one of those guys that like never practiced but just showed up and sounded great.
Yeah, I think so.
Your band director famously told you that you had trombone lips. If you had been told you had flute lips instead, where do you think you'd be right now? This is so...
A busboy at
There it
Steak and Ale.
is. And scene. Nick, would you like to ask your final question?
Yeah, okay. What do students not do enough of and they need to do more of?
Oh, that's a real good question. I don't think they really do enough slow, careful practice. I don't think they have the metronome on enough, tuner enough. Oftentimes I'll ask, hey, what tempo are you aiming for here? And they're like, oh, I don't know, somewhere like, and they start snapping their fingers. If you've been practicing with a metronome, you know the exact number you're aiming for and where you were in your practice. So I think that you might think, okay, just having this metronome ticking off, but it starts building up. It starts building up this pattern in your mind and reinforcing good time, whether you're actively chasing that or not, just having it on all the time. So that and just something perfect, tuner or a drone or something that they're playing up against, but always, all the time. Just something that's so perfect so that you know immediately when you're not correct and not waiting for your next lesson to be told that the time isn't correct, the rhythm isn't clear. So I would say it's that, because it's almost so basic. Some people their intentions are great. These students, they're looking to try to play the hard stuff as best they can. But when you're telling them to play slow scales with a metronome and tuner, that sounds like something they did in high school. They don't want to do that, and it's a skill that actually starts to deteriorate if you're not doing it all the time. So that's the thing I think that the students I've seen, no matter how great they are not doing metronome all the time and tuning a good tuner all the time.
100% agree.
Nick agreed with you, so that's good. Your question passed.
Good.
Well, this has been a delight. You are a delight. You are one of my favorite people, and I'm so glad we got to do this, and I got to share with the trombone community how cool Jeff Dee is.
Yep.
And man, yeah, I didn't even get to talk about how you have the best dog ever. But shout out to Mitch.
Yes.
What's up, Mitch? He's a very good buddy listening to records. He loves hanging down there. And yeah, thanks for doing this. I look forward to watching more and more of your career grow and all the wonderful things you're doing now at the Pittsburgh Symphony and all the profound impact you're having with young people and your students. And your students are doing so well right now. If anyone's interested in studying somewhere, look up Jeff. And is your website? I forget is it like jeffdee.com, Jeff Dee Trombone or something?
Excuse me. Yeah, it's jeffdee.com. It's due for an update, which I'll be.
It's a charming website.
Soon,
if you've ever talked to Alexis Smith, ask her about what she thinks about Jeff Dee's website. She's like obsessed with your bio. She's like, that's the most adorable bio I've ever read in my life. Because it's like a story. It made it very helpful to study for this. That's for sure.
Well, guys, I'm honored to have been asked to do this, and I'm a great admirer of not only the Third Coast Retreat itself, but what you make available as a resource through this podcast. I feel like you bridge the gap between the professionals and those who are wanting to become professionals. You do a great way of connecting those two worlds and making it more real and accessible for people who want to pursue music. So thank you.
Well, appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Grateful to be on here. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And I'll see you.
Yeah,
we'll
man.
be at the German Club sometime soon and have a beer.
Yeah. You in town for a while?
I'm in town for a little bit. I'm here. Let's hang.
Good. Yeah, let's get together.
Okay. Well, this has been the trombone. And I don't know how to close. Oh, we can include Jeff on our haiku. Our poem.
Not a haiku.
We always ramble and just talk in an outro for a little bit. We all say subscribe, follow us on all the social medias at Trombone Retreat. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't subscribed. Patreon, mailing list, website tromboneretreat.com. And we always just improvise a poem to end. So it starts, I'll be like, so Nick, when life gets you down,
and you realize that you're out of eggs,
sometimes you just got to get some egg whites and whip up a fresh scramby. You can go, Jeff.
fresh scramby.
I panicked.
It's all right.
I got nervous. I was trying to think of egg alternatives if you don't have eggs, but
It's the liquid inside of a bean can.
that is 100% something Nick Schwartz would know that I've never heard of. And this is how we end every podcast. And then we say, and then retreat yourself.
Retreat yourself.
Treat yourself.